We are starting over, and now I want you to know that this is the interview that I'm doing with Joelle Foster. And what I've been doing for the last few weeks is I've been doing interviews of all of the speakers for the conference, which is Future of Astrology. And what we're doing at this conference is we're looking at astrology, the ancient wisdom, and we're bringing it forward to application in modern times. So this is so important for us to understand in the way to look at astrology. But today I'm going to be interviewing my dear friend, Joelle Foster, who has been studying with me for many years. We go way, way back when I first had the Galactic Center, where taught old techniques with astrology, and I mean most archaic way, with the projectors and the chalkboards, drawing the charts out. I mean, this is the way things used to be done. Now we have the internet. And so today, Joelle has a lot that she's going to share with us, because she is speaking on one of the most interesting topics that everyone wants to know about, which is Sade Sati. But before we go into all of that, I want to remind everyone, we just have a few days before the conference. It starts Friday. Friday, I'm going to be giving all of my secrets in a half-day workshop in Vedic astrology. And that night, I'm giving my world predictions for 2019 to 2020. And let me say, there is a lot to say about what is coming up in the future. So get ready. If you haven't signed up for the conference yet, you still have time. And remember, it's this Friday it starts. So it's October 5th through the 7th here in Dallas, Texas. futureofastrology.com. The link is here in the YouTube channel. If you scroll down, you'll find the link. But otherwise, just check it out, futureofastrology.com. And I've been interviewing my speakers who are full of wisdom and information. And I like to use the word wisdom today because we're talking a lot about Saturn. So with all that, I'd like to introduce Joelle, and I would like for her to give us an idea. Tell me, Joelle, what got you into Vedic astrology, and give us a little background about, what you're doing with it right now and about your topic that you're going to be talking about.
I've always had an interest in astrology and mysticism since I was very young, since I can remember. And
me too.
And at some point, I think a relative, an aunt, gave me a book on sun sign astrology. I was fascinated, and I loved to read the horoscopes in paper, which we know now that they're not written by real astrologers mostly. But,
right.
But still, I mean, that's what got me into it. And then as a young adult, when I first graduated from college, this is so funny looking back, I had my first corporate job, and I would drive to my astrology classes afterwards. So corporate girl by day, astrology girl by night. And I started studying Western as Joni did, and that's why she's such a great teacher for me, because she was able to bridge that gap for me when I found Vedic. I found Joni because it's no accident, but it seemed like it at the time. It was so random. I was looking something up on the internet, Googling something, and her class came up, and I did not know what Vedic was at the time. I just knew astrology was astrology. And I show up at her class at the Galactic Center, and not knowing that there was a difference. And she said, I'll never forget, you said, well, this is an advanced class. Do you want to come back? I have, basic class coming up. And I said, oh, no, I want to stay. And I think this is going to make sense later. And that was in 2004. And I've been with her ever since.
Oh, and by the way, I want to tell everybody, she is also a tutor for my university, which is University of Vedic Astrology. She helps me incredibly. And another thing I didn't mention is that Joelle is the reason why I started all of the YouTubes, because she would come over with the camera and all the equipment and say, come on, we got to do this. And I was like, I don't know how to do this. And we were like two blind leading the blind because we didn't really know what we were doing. And so, but we had a lot of fun. But oh my God, half the time we would like forget to put the volume on the camera.
They did us that we could like redo it and had takes instead of live.
Yeah, instead of right now, which is live. I know, but anyway, we all live and learn, right? We all learn through experience, and this is how we grow. And that even leads us up to the talk that Joelle is going to be talking about, which is Saturn. Saturn, is probably the greatest teacher of the planets because Saturn teaches us wisdom. And leading up to, Joelle doing her talk on Sade Sati, this is like so powerful, Sade Sati, because, well, let me say this. My clients go, well, aren't I coming up to Sade Sati? I said, yes, but don't go Google it on the internet because it'll scare you to death because it's not always that awful. It just isn't. So Joelle, tell us a little bit about your talk and why you decided to speak on Sade Sati.
Well, Sade Sati is close to home for me at the moment because I just left my Sade Sati period. So I'm going to be sharing a personal experience that I had. And there's so much fear about Sade Sati and superstition, and so many astrologers will try to scare people and profit from that. So, but I like to help people, guide them to lean into the wisdom of Saturn and. Because I think that the more that Saturn is a great teacher. Now it's a harsh teacher. It's not like Jupiter, very benevolent teacher. But the more that you struggle against, the harder it will be. So my talk is going to be about my experience. I'm going to be showing charts and sharing a special little known technique that Joni taught to me years ago to try to gauge the effects and how the impact that it will have on each person. So this is based on their personal chart, and it is a mathematical technique that I will go into. But I will just be talking about. Well, first of all, let me just explain to you what Sade Sati is. Sade Sati is a 7.5-year period, approximately, of the transit of Saturn in the sign before, the sign of, and the sign after the moon. So this is approximately 7.5 years, and it occurs about every 30 years in a person's life. So each person could have up to 4 Sade Sati periods. Now, very few people have 4 Sade Sati periods, and I hope no one does.
Yeah. I think we're going to be really old.
Oh, no. But yeah, they're going to have a lot of wisdom leaving the planet, too, let me tell you. But and a lot of people will have 3 in their lifetimes. So, but here's the thing that, so given that Sade Sati can comprise about 1/4 of a person's life. And, that is a lot of time. And not everyone has a really hard, 1/4 of their life, or we would all just be really depressed.
Right.
Yeah. And so every person is different. It depends on your karma and many other things in the chart. But I just wanted to try to dispel some of the fear around it, because I think that fear does attract, well, thoughts are things, and that's what we think about. So I want to try to dispel some of this fear, and also share some things that I think that could help a person through the Sade Sati period.
Yeah. And, you said you could have like 3 of them. Well, most people definitely have 2 of them because, that takes you to around your 50s, 60s. But what would make one Sade Sati different from the other? Do you think it's dashas, or tell me your thoughts on that?
Definitely. If you're in a more difficult dasha period for your ascendant sign, because we go by ascendant sign in Vedic. Then yes, you're going to have a more difficult time.
Okay. And then for 7.5 years, I always kind of think that it's most intense when you're in where Saturn's in the sign of your moon. But it's the sign before and the sign after the moon. Tell me a little bit about what you feel like the sign before, the sign after, and the sign of. How is that different?
Well, the sign before, definitely it's going to be most intense when Saturn is in the sign of. That's when you're going to be really feeling.
Okay, that's what I think.
You have to deal with the issues. Like the sign before, in my experience and what I've seen and in others, my clients' charts, is that's like when the issues start to rear their head and start to come about. And so, if you don't deal with it, then the second part, when Saturn is with the moon, especially in a tight orb with the moon, that is when things could be, hard.
Yeah.
If you're not dealing with the issues. And then the third part of the Sade Sati, when the Saturn is in the sign after the moon, is so usually a little lighter.
Okay.
Things are starting to lighten up. Finish up,
Okay.
and you do still have some wrap up work to do. Now, one of my teachers told me once, Saturn will leave a gift at the door if you learn your lessons.
I wonder who said that.
I thought it was you, Joni.
Yeah, I don't remember, but she said it was me. So
But sometimes the Saturn gift doesn't seem like a gift at the time.
Never. I mean, Saturn.
Yeah.
It's a teacher, and it teaches by hard knocks. I mean, we don't usually grow through our most difficult experiences with ease and joy. It's like it's hardship. But the harder things are, the more we appreciate them when we do go through the growth period. Because, when you've worked for something and then you get the achievement, the awards, you're definitely happier with yourself, instead of, if you've been given everything, silver spoon in your mouth, and you never had to work for anything, you just don't appreciate it. That's what Saturn's all about. I mean, you feel like I've worked so hard for this, and then you get the accolades for everything that you put so much hard work into. It's like, that's an achievement. I think there's no coincidence that Saturn is one of the karkas for the 10th house, because the 10th house, Capricorn is the 10th sign, Saturn rules Capricorn. It's so much about our social standing, the awards we get for our hard work and labor and effort, something we've trained our whole life for. When we finally get the award for it, you feel so good about yourself. And not only that, I always say Saturn gives us wisdom, which comes with old age. How many people learn their lessons through reading about it? We're going to learn our lessons through the actions. Karma deals with right action. But when we learn our great lessons through life, this is what's called wisdom, and that comes at an older age. And, it's like there's no coincidence that some of the most wise teachers are the elders, because they can incorporate all of their lessons through life's learning. And this is the epitome of Saturn. So Saturn, sometimes I think, when you're older, you've been there, you've done that, but the rewards of a life well lived is Saturn. And I also feel this, and tell me what your thoughts are with this, that somebody who has a powerful Saturn in their chart, and even in their Navamsha, their second part of life is the best part of life. It's, that's when you really enjoy the fruits of your labor. That's what Saturn's going to be about. What do you think about that?
Yes.
Because I mean, Saturn is that. Saturn's wisdom. But you know, Saturn, I always say, gives us structure, gives us discipline, gives us focus, and we couldn't achieve anything without Saturn.
Yeah, because it holds our feet to the fire.
Yeah. Makes us responsible. That's another major keyword for Saturn. Responsibility. Whereas Jupiter, you know, is expansion, it's spirituality, it deals with lessons as well, and gurus and teachers. But sometimes Jupiter can be excess, and there isn't the appreciation that comes with Saturn and the respect that comes with Saturn. So give me any of your other thoughts that you may feel about Saturn. And, you know, then I'd like to look and see if anyone has some questions for Joelle concerning this talk on Sade Sati. Anything else you want to add to all this?
Very well said. It's just, I have to say that not everyone has a difficult Sade Sati period. So I've seen people, you know, really prosper, but there will be pressure. Now, not everyone handles pressure the same way. We're all different. So I think knowing what's coming, that's how the beauty of astrology is, you know, knowing what could be coming, so then you can prepare and know how to focus your energy.
And one more thing I might add, the moon in and of itself is how we're feeling at the time. So when Saturn is like approaching the moon, it's all about our feeling sense of our life and what's going on. And, you know, and the mother. There's a lot of times that people feel like when they go into Sade Sati, the mother's health will, you know, go down and they're not doing well. So
that's true.
This is another variable that's going to be a part of it. So let's go ahead and take some questions. I mean, I know you guys have to have a lot of questions concerning Sade Sati. Want to read some of these, Joelle? Right here. Okay. Let's see.
Here, a lot of good questions here.
I can barely read it. Help me out here.
The Sade Sati for Scorpio moons will go on until May 2019.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, because Saturn right now is in Sagittarius. So once Saturn leaves Sagittarius, you'll be out of that. And let's see, Saturn will leave Sagittarius, to be exact, because I've looked it up, January of 2020. So got a little bit more to go, but it's wrapping it up if it's, you know, in the sign after Scorpio. Okay, so what are some other good questions here?
Here's a good question. What kind of exercise do you recommend to get through it? Well, definitely doing your sadhana, which is your daily spiritual practices, is, you know, the best way to get through it, because that's how you know you're really gonna emotionally get through Sade Sati, if it is a difficult period, in fact. So doing your daily sadhana is the best way. You know, whether it's yoga or meditation or chanting or, you know, however, you know, communing with nature.
Yeah, that's a good one. I believe in that totally. You know, to me, there's nothing more healing than to go out for a walk, breathe fresh air, commune with nature. That's your connection to the divine. I agree with you there, Joelle. That's lovely. Okay. All right. So anything else? Let's see here.
Is this intensified with an exalted moon? Well, definitely the strength of the moon is one of the first things that I look at when I'm talking to a person about their Sade Sati chart. So the strength of the moon is definitely a consideration. But there are many other factors. So remember, 3 logs make a fire, so you can't just look at one thing in a chart. You have to look at many things.
So you're saying if your moon's in Taurus, if your moon's in Cancer, that it may not be as bad? Is that what you feel?
Well, I mean, she's asking about is this intensified with an exalted moon?
Oh, I see. Is
So-
it intensified? Good question.
Yeah, so the placement of the
Yeah.
moon, the strength of the moon, there are just a couple of factors that you look at, and also the house that the moon is in.
Mm-hmm. You know what I think makes a huge difference, and I did a little video on this, is when a moon is isolated in a chart. When it's away from all the other planets, remember the moon loves to be with other planets. It feels like it gets support, emotional support, connection to others. When the moon is all by itself, away from any planet in the chart, it's lonely. And I think Saturn intensifies that. Coming to the moon, loneliness. Saturn moon equates to loneliness and isolation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so that's a good point. Okay, so what are some other questions here? You're going to have to read these, Joelle. It's
Okay.
too far for me to
Okay.
see over there.
What about the house in which Saturn transits? How does that affect the results? Well, of course, yes,
Mhm.
absolutely. It depends. It's going to intensify the issues that the house represents
Mm-hmm.
for that house.
So will it vary from Sade Sati to Sade Sati? It's always going to be the same issue, you think?
Well, the house placement. I think the question is if the moon is in, say, the first house and Saturn is transiting the
Mhm.
moon in the first house, then
Yeah.
does that bring up the issues of that house? Of course it does.
Yeah,
Yes.
of course. Okay, good point. All right, what else? What is Julian saying here? He's coming to the conference. I can't wait to see him.
Hi, Julian.
How is, what does it say there? Help me out here.
How does this perform when Saturn matures?
Okay.
Oh, so I think you're talking about the maturity date of each planet.
Ah,
Is how I'm
yeah,
interpreting this question.
yeah.
I would think that would help. Definitely.
But the moon doesn't necessarily, the sun and moon don't have a maturity date. The planets actually do.
Right. Yes, I think Julian
Yeah.
is talking about the Saturn maturity date. Sorry if I'm not interpreting that question correctly.
Well, I'll tell you what, it does make an effect on how mature you are.
Exactly, yes.
Because, sometimes we are not, we think we know everything when we're 16. And
Right.
guess what? There's not a lot of wisdom there yet. Yeah, I mean, there can be, but, like I said, wisdom comes with time, and that's what Saturn's all about. Okay, so what else?
Here.
Can you read?
Yeah, sorry. Would Sade Sati always create problems in a romantic relationship?
That is a great
It
question.
sure is, yes.
I have found that to be, there's nothing in the books that says, Sade Sati, you're going to have problems in relationships, but invariably every single person does.
Absolutely.
That is a good one. I'm so glad. Who said that? That needs to be. Rena needs to be commended on that one,
Thank you,
because
Rena.
we never think of it as being relationships, but oh my God, it always does.
Always, because if you're struggling and your partner, especially if they're in a difficult period for themselves, then yes, it's going to be intensified.
Right.
As well.
Right, exactly. So it's crazy that would be Saturn conjunct the moon always affects relationships, but it always does. Okay, help me out.
What is a good book to read if you are a beginner? Well, I'm very partial to Joni's book, which is excellent. I love the way she teaches in a systematic manner, and is Eastern
Astrology for Western minds. Do we
Yeah.
have it? A copy of it right here? No, I have all my books over on the other side of the room. These are all the books I've read throughout my learning. Many of them. Y'all should see my other bookcase. You think this is a good one. But those of you that come to the conference will get to see all of my bookcases. So Yes, because I'm having a Saturday night get together at my house, dinner and social event that we will all come together as friends. That's how I want this conference to be. So remember, for those of you that just tuned in, it is the conference that we're talking about. Joelle is one of the speakers on Sade Sati. It's futureofastrology.com, and it's October 5th through the 7th here in Dallas, Texas, and we'd love to meet you. So it's going to be a lot of fun. So let's take some more questions. This is a lot of fun, just hearing what people have to say. So what else? I can't see as well as you, Joelle.
You here? No. Yeah, someone's asking about this particular Mahadasha. I did say earlier that definitely the dasha, the Mahadasha that you're in, if it is a good, better dasha for your chart, you could have an easier time versus unless, for lack of a better word, auspicious dasha for your rising sign. Yeah.
And then again, if you're in Saturn's Mahadasha and you're in Sade Sati, remember the rule of thumb is whatever dasha you're in, that transiting planet is more powerful. It makes a greater, bigger effect when you're in a dasha. That transit becomes 10 times more powerful. So as I said, if you're in Sade Sati and you're in Saturn's Mahadasha,
which I was.
Yeah, no wonder. And that's what really does differentiate one Sade Sati from the other, what dasha you're in. And for those of you that don't know Vedic astrology, the dashas are the predictive tool that we use. It's based on, I call them planetary periods. It's based on wherever your moon is, what nakshatra it's in. That starts out your whole cycle of your life according to what dashas you will experience at what point in time. And therefore, that planet in your chart, when you're in a dasha, becomes accentuated, plus the transiting planet of that dasha lord becomes accentuated during that time. So I hope that for those of you that were kind of wondering, well, what is a dasha, that would have explained it a little bit. Okay, more questions.
Do you check the Ashtavarga points from Saturn in houses? I think you're saying 1, 12, 1. I'm sorry, I'm not understanding. 12, 1, 2 for moon to judge Sade Sati's positive or negative. Yes, we do. I do look at the Ashtavarga points. The technique that I'm giving is a little more. Well, it's less known, and it's a really great technique.
Good.
So, but yes, Ashtavarga is a technique that is used as well.
Yeah, I think when I'm looking at Ashtaka-Varga, I think it's really, really important to look at the planets Ashtaka-Varga, because so many people look at Sarva Ashtaka-Varga points, which are all of the planets' contributions of Bindu points to each sign, each house. But I look at that particular planet, because every time that particular planet transits into a new house or new sign, it's going to give a different result, just that planet, according to different houses that it's in. So those of you that don't know what Ashtaka-Varga is that the planets distribute points to certain sign houses. And if it's a low Bindu point, if it's really low, then you're going to have a difficult time. So in other words, when you're looking at Saturn's transit into Sagittarius, where it is right now, if you have low Ashtaka-Varga points to the house that's Sagittarius, it can be a difficult time. The higher the points, the better. But a lot of people focus in on all the planets' points to a house, but I like to look at just that planet. So every time, like when Jupiter starts to shift signs into Scorpio, I'm going to immediately look to see how many Ashtaka Varga points everyone gets in their charts according to the sign Scorpio, how many points Jupiter distributes to that sign Scorpio. So for the full year that Jupiter is in Scorpio, it will give that result. So I think that's a really interesting comment that somebody left here, and it's very valid. Yes. Okay.
Oh, here's Regina. She says, hi.
Hi.
Hi, Regina. We'll see you on Friday.
Yeah. Hi, Regina. How fun. Regina's been with our university for a while, and she is incredible with social media and knowing all the odds and ends with that. She's good with promotion, and she writes for Astrologic Magazine. That's a magazine I have, which you guys, if you don't know about Astrologic Magazine, it's astrologicmagazine.com. We have wonderful articles by many Vedic astrologers. It's all online, and it's a lot of fun. Regina writes Who's in the News. It's a great article.
Okay, I see one more question. I've seen it twice. Someone asked about what if the moon is with Rahu?
Oh,
I'm sorry. No, I mean, definitely the Rahu with the moon intensifies, the moon, and can make a person sometimes, feel a little unstable emotionally. So that could be a little more difficult, in my opinion.
A lot of very famous people have moon conjunct Rahu. Yeah. That's even a part of my topic, my lecture that I'm giving for the all-day workshop, or the half-day workshop. I talk about Rahu conjunct the moon, especially in the 10th house. It's amazing how many celebrities have this. Because it's like fame. Whatever Rahu is conjunct, whatever planet, not just the moon, it will accentuate and it will magnify that planet's energy. So the moon is the emotions. It's going to be magnified. It can be someone who's, powerful, but at the same time, emotionally can be too extreme, and they have to realize that they can be obsessive compulsive at times. And the Sade Sati will intensify that, because then you've got Saturn not only hitting the moon, but Rahu on top of that. So that's a good question. Good point.
Yeah, good question.
Okay. So let's take a few more questions. Come on, guys.
Any people who got fame and success during Sade Sati? Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Yes, I actually have a chart that I will be giving. I'm not going to give away, because it's somebody that actually I do know personally, but it's very famous, from Dallas, Texas. And and they actually won one of the greatest awards in their field when Saturn was exactly on their moon on that day. To be honest with you, I was floored, and that really gave me a whole different take on Sade Sati. So, good point. And have you had experiences with that as well, Joelle?
Just through, not any clients in particular, but I've had people that have had success. I mean, meeting the person of their dreams and things like that.
Wow, yeah, that's amazing. Yeah. We are so focused that Saturn's negative and Jupiter's positive. And of course, you're going to have to realize that Saturn can sometimes be your best planet, especially if you have a Taurus ascendant. It's like the Yoga Karaka planet, and Libra ascendant, Yoga Karaka planet. It gives greatness when there's a book called The Greatness of Saturn. And that's and I'll have to say, I'm a Gemini Lagna ascendant. Saturn has really helped me and given me practically everything I have. I will say that Jupiter doesn't do me any great favors, but Saturn does. So do not be afraid of Saturn. Let's take a few more questions here. What was that one about the seventh house? I can't see.
Yeah, I'm not
Okay.
understanding it. I
Okay.
apologize, Dylan.
Okay. Any other questions that you can understand here?
You had some great questions today.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, looks like we are going to close here. I have really enjoyed talking to Joelle about Saturn and Sade Sati, which, as we said before, you go Google it on the internet and you'll be scared to death. And as I have seen, some of the best, most powerful things have come to people. And I have to say, Saturn has been my teacher and my great friend, and has really given me all the awards and happiness that I have actually come to achieve in my life. And I give great thanks to Saturn. I actually love Saturn. So even though it's not a lot of fun, Jupiter can be a lot of fun, but Saturn, what comes of it through hard work, diligence, discipline, and responsibility is the best gift of all. And that's the wisdom that Saturn has to teach us. So once again, guys, thank you for joining us. And please come to our conference. We want to meet everyone, gather around, connect with those that have like-mindedness, a love for astrology, particularly Vedic astrology. So the conference is October 5th through the 7th, coming up here this weekend here in Dallas, Texas. Go to the website, futureofastrology.com. Thank you for joining us. Bye-bye.